You can't evacuate and you can't do anything, and there's nowhere to go, and there's no one that's going to come get you.
And people that weren't even in flood zones.
Yeah.
Underwater.
Yeah. People think, oh, okay, I'll still have my home. If your home's gone or if you're swimming in your home, there's a problem.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Sarasota, Florida Living, where we teach you everything Sarasota. Today we have my business partner, Marius Mokan, right back here, working the engineer for us. And we have a wonderful guest, Heather Hackett with Local Relief. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we're so excited to have Heather in, and she's going to be a very repetitive guest host because you host your own podcast.
Yes.
You're going to be a guest with us, and then we're going to team up with a bunch of other things because
we're going to be talking a lot.
There's a lot of stuff going because people are really concerned about disaster relief in Florida area especially, and it's not just hurricanes. There's other things going on that you guys really help people with. Okay. So we're going to attack some of those things today. So one of the main reasons we love to have Heather with us is because as realtors, our number one question for 15 years ago was, there's alligators in that water, and we always say yes, and that's still in the top 5 questions we get. But now over the past 2 to 3 years with everything that's going on, the first concern is about the storms.
Rightfully so.
And then last year was a crazy year for Florida with hurricanes. And then, those hurricanes create other problems too. So, having your app that you've developed, I think is amazing because, everybody has to download it because you have to understand your app helps people before storms start, what we're talking about now.
Correct.
While the storms are coming and hitting, and then after. So there's so many different levels to understand. And if you're not from here, you need to know. So I think that's one of the first places we like to go is, if you're not here from Florida, what are some of the benefits that your app and your company brings or nonprofit brings to everybody around us?
Sure. And really the idea came from the fact that I'm not originally from Florida. So
right.
When in 2017, when we had Hurricane Irma, that was my first storm. And I'm originally from Ohio. We don't have hurricanes.
Right.
So when I started doing the research and trying to figure out how do I prepare my home, what do I do, what resources are available, what do I do, before, and in that preparation mode, but also during and after, that's the big part.
Right.
And as soon as I really got into it and realized how unorganized it was and how chaotic it was and how, man, we can just do better.
Right.
I just thought God, we can do better
gotta
with
be a
technology and whatever. And then realizing that there wasn't a way, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. So what do? I brain dump and think, okay, if I'm going to manage this sucker, what would I do? And it just kept evolving, and eventually all the questions that I had that someone could want to ask were answered, in the forms of you had the static information that doesn't change, how to prepare, and then the information of, what resources are available. What's the free stuff that's available to me? I know there's nonprofits out there that are going to help me. What are they?
Right.
And how do I find them, is the big part. And then the social media piece, so you can find the hyper-local information as well. So it's everything combined.
I think what's really neat about the way you've set that system up is because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? Until
Absolutely.
Like, oh my gosh, here comes the wind.
Yeah. And even there, you don't know the terms that you think you do. And most people think, oh, okay, well, I'm going to prepare. And they buy extra water and they buy food and they buy whatever. And it's, but nobody knows how to recover. And that's such a big difference.
Right.
Where people think, oh, okay, I'll still have my home. If your home's gone or if you're swimming in your home, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the part where people have no idea where to start. To
Reality
say it's
hits.
overwhelming is an understatement. And that's the piece that I really want to help people with, is all of them.
You had a young lady on just recently that had a major catastrophe
Stephanie,
analysis.
Carol,
I saw some of the stuff you had on her. I was just amazing.
Yeah.
That stuff. So, that was a situation where they were just fine one day and next day everything's done.
Absolutely.
Right? It just went from perfect to, to nothing,
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have a lot of those stories that, we'll be able to tap in over time.
Yeah, there are. But the most amazing part, I think, with her and really just anybody in that situation is you have, Stephanie and herself, she had 4 feet of water in her home, and her home's on Siesta, and it wasn't this big elaborate home. It was an older home.
Mm-hmm.
But even with her, she's lucky to where her schedule is flexible and she can put as many hours as she needs into fixing her home. And she has made it like a full-time job. And to say it's been a struggle for her to find information is an understatement. And she's
Wow.
like, what the heck? I'm a smart woman and I'm doing this and I can't find information and I can't find resources. And if I'm struggling, how do moms handle it? How do people with kids handle it? How do, people that have to work that structured hours, how in the world do they recover?
Right.
Because it is so time consuming. And even there, with all the time that you put into it, that's not guaranteed that you're going to get anything back.
Oh my gosh.
And things contradict each other and whatever. So there is a desperate need for a hub.
Yeah.
Local relief is not a want; it is a true need.
And you really expand outside of Florida also is with your connections and things. So you're branching beyond Florida.
Yes.
And you I know that you're saying, wait a minute, I got to take this call. I'm talking to somebody in DC.
Yeah. No,
cool.
disasters happen beyond Florida.
Yeah.
There, right now, I have an intern in Palisades and I have, things going on in California. There's still a lot of recovery in North Carolina, and that's going to take years.
People forget about that stuff, right? It's like, the days and weeks go by and it falls off the local news, but the people are still dealing with this stuff on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah, I met yesterday. There was a conference in Orlando, and I talked with a woman from Kimberly Bentley, love her, with Global Empowerment Mission. And then I met a new woman. I want to say her name is Kaylee. I don't remember because I just met her, but she's impressive, and she's with Airbnb.org, and they were talking about the fact that they're really, they're still in California, but they're going to be in there for a long time.
Oh, I bet.
Because here, at least in Florida, when we have floods, we still have our home, we still have our structure.
Correct.
Where there you have chimneys. You have chimneys and a few trees, and it's gone. Yeah. That you want to talk recovery process. Yeah. That is a long recovery process.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because as we know here in Florida. Because I came from the Pacific Northwest, from Oregon, and we dealt with forest fires every year where, ashes are falling from the sky and air quality is terrible and you don't know if you need to evacuate. And, the biggest difference is, and here I live not even a quarter mile from the bay, right?
All right.
So, that's one thing that, no place is ever going to be perfect where you're going to live. And one thing that I've noticed is that, I'd rather take the hurricanes because even though I'm a quarter mile and we had that direct hit with Milton, I didn't have any damage.
Right.
Because the moment that hurricane touches land, it pretty much loses its power. Correct?
Starts losing its steam.
Yeah.
But you were fortunate like I was. We didn't get the benefit of some of the folks that she got to work with. So,
sure. Exactly.
But people are dealing with tornadoes right now.
Yeah.
And Midwest.
Yeah, it's the season. What is it, May and June? It's tornado season.
Yeah.
So everybody's got something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the differences between living in Florida and what we dealt with on the Pacific Northwest and Oregon, the West Coast region. Heather, why don't you tell us about your event with Bob Bunting?
Sure. Bob Bunting with the Climate Adaptation Center. He is having an event on April 1st. And no, it's not, he's got to say, it's not the April Fool's joke. But what he does is remarkable because they actually do predictions. And his prediction from last year was, I think, the most accurate in, I don't know, like nation or whatever.
He said he was only like one off.
Yeah. He's unfortunately he was right with last year.
Yes, yeah.
So last year's the year we're like, no, don't be right. So hopefully this year is going to be much more mild.
Yeah.
Than the year before, but he is going to make that announcement on April 1st. So,
I can't wait for that event. It was a great podcast, and that's going to be loaded up soon. I know you're getting ready to put the one you just had with him.
Yes.
So if you're watching this and you haven't seen that, make sure you go back and watch Bob because that was an amazing interview. I thought.
That was fun. We're going to do a lot more of those.
I got a whole new respect for the whole science of it.
Yeah.
It kind of made me double check and look. Everything is amazing. So.
Yeah, you got to geek out on the science. every now
definitely,
and then.
definitely. So. As a realtor, knowing that we have local relief now. And I'll go back and kind of give you some of my top questions I asked. But what do you feel is the most important for somebody moving to Florida, has never lived here? What would they need to know coming into the hurricane season? Because that's usually the first question we have. So there should be 2 or 3 things like this. You love to do pros and cons, but but you also want to be prepared. You don't want to be so negative. But they really happen here. So you want to be prepared.
Absolutely, we do. And the big thing too is, and I'm gonna throw you questions
back.
right afterwards, but the big thing is like definitely, know your zone, know your area. Elevation zone is not the same as the flood zone,
Okay.
and I mean, there's a lot of different things that you need to know, but it really is just educating yourself on which area you want to live in first.
Right.
Really look at that. And also, the big thing is, and I'm sure you're going to talk about as well, is make sure you check. We just had hurricanes. We had 3 of them.
Yeah.
So you better make sure that the house you're buying is exactly what you want and it's exactly what they say they're listing, because, just like cars, there's a bunch of cars that are sold right after hurricanes. It doesn't mean they're good cars. It means they're probably water cars.
Could have been flooded.
So you really have to check, one, the home that you're in, and then 2, you really want to look at, kind of a different perspective of why are they selling? Because
Correct.
if they're in an area where, it's low and they got damaged, or if it's a home that may be more money to repair, or if it's in a zone that they say, you know what, I'm out because we get hit too much, or because we're, evacuating a lot, or we just missed this one. There are so many reasons that people want to go.
Right. And people are moving for lifestyles, but then these things you don't really think about them. But we're starting to get more questions about it. And what's nice about your app, if they just download the app, you can kind of start getting some of those questions
100%.
answered right away.
Yeah. And that's the whole goal too, is, local relief really is the one-stop shop. So speaking from someone that moved from Ohio and had no idea what storm surge was, this is where you learn those things and you go, oh wait, storm surge isn't just on the beach.
Right.
I mean, I'm like, what do I know? A storm surge. I just thought, okay, it's how far it comes up the beach. Ooh, I didn't realize like, oh no, wait, it's how many feet it comes like, above the water level or whatever. So, and not only that, it doesn't rise up, it goes sideways. That stuff comes with a vengeance, so there's a lot to learn. There really is. And also it's overwhelming. And especially when you're in the middle of disaster, that's the time where you want everything super easy in front of you. That's when you're panicked. It's when you're stressed. It's when you're not thinking clearly.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you want everything at your fingertips. And that's local relief. Everything is at your fingertips, from shelter information to the immediate needs. Like you can right now download it, go to resources, go to Florida, find immediate needs there where you can find shelter information, flood zones, evacuation zones. You can find all of that stuff together. You can find 511, 211, 311, all the information hotlines that are available. You can find any information from FEMA to SBA to local organizations that are going to help you, to crisis cleanup to SBA. There are a boatload. I promise you, you will find at least one that helps you. But the whole point is to put everything together, because go ahead, I dare you, try to Google it. Try to find resources that, are all available, and you're not going to find anywhere near
in one
what
spot.
I have all together.
Well,
Absolutely.
and the thing is, again, going back to you don't know what you don't know. I mean, you might start going through your thing. You're like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that because I've never been through it.
Right.
An example is we had the last storm and we did not have, we had put impact windows in our house and we had a new roof put on a couple years prior, but our garage door was still the original garage door. And we're like, we're fine. We got impact windows. And then, of course, I'm out there finding lumber, 2 hours before the storm comes, trying to brace my door.
Yeah.
And, you're just not thinking ahead. And then, it's amazing what happens when the power goes out and the wind is moving.
Yeah.
The trigger in your mind, a panic comes in your mind, not crazy panic, freezing, but you go, oh my gosh, this is really happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we were fine. We lost power for 2 or 3 hours. I can't imagine the people
Yeah.
on the Keys
Yeah.
that lost everything and they just wake up next morning. So now how do I start life again?
And that's if they're lucky.
Yeah.
That's if they're lucky.
Yeah.
You want to talk problems, talk about the people that don't evacuate and go, oh, we'll ride this out, or, oh, we're going to go to a
It happens
hurricane party.
every year.
And, oh, we're going to do that. And they will tell you, the hospitals, the news, the whatever, first responders will tell you, we aren't going anywhere. You are on your own. And, it's one thing when, if you wake up the next day and say, ooh, that was a tough one, as opposed to when you're in it, when the storm has just started. And, oh, by the way, you have water, coming up through the door, and it's just begun, and you can't evacuate and you can't do anything, and there's nowhere to go, and there's no one that's going to come get you.
Yeah.
And then you want to talk panic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
now let's take out power. Now let's look at the fact that we're just starting. You have, not only do you have the worst of the storm, but you have the eye, and then you have the other side. It's going to be even harder, than the front. And you're going, oh my gosh, now what? And that's where people, were rescued from either the top of their home or they were going up to their attic. I mean, there is so many just dangers just from being in your home alone. When you're in it, when the storm has just started, and oh, by the way, you have water, coming up through the door, and it's just begun, and you can't evacuate, and you can't do anything, and there's nowhere to go, and there's no one that's going to come get you.
Yeah.
And then you want to talk panic.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
now let's take out power. Now let's look at the fact that we're just starting. You have, not only do you have the worst of the storm, but you have the eye, and then you have the other side. It's going to be even harder, than the front. And you're going, oh my gosh, now what? And that's where people, were rescued from either the top of their home or they were going up to their attic. I mean, there is so many, just dangers just from being in your home alone, and that to me is, if you are in that zone, this is where they are not something to mess around with. You do not toy with a hurricane.
I think this last year really kind of, took that old Florida, like, we'll ride it out and have a party.
Right.
Kind of out of the equation.
Yeah.
I know it did for us. I mean, not that I was, running around drinking beer or anything, but it took it much more serious.
Yeah. The part with me, this past hurricane season was, Debbie was a lot of water, for Sarasota, like a boatload. And then we had Helene, but Milton, what killed me with Milton was the fact of not only the strength of that thing, but the tornadoes that spawned from it. And it wasn't your little water spouts.
Right.
These were like legit Oklahoma tornadoes.
Yeah.
Like they were real tornadoes. And the abundance of them. Oh my gosh. So that part to me, I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Next time we get like a legit, big hurricane, see you later.
Peace out.
Yeah, I can do local relief from, as long as make sure I have my power and my Starlink and all that stuff and I'm okay. But it's one thing again to be in it where we have hurricane windows, we have all that stuff. And even our doors, when that storm, when the eye came through and then the second part came, our doors in the back were bowing. They were straight, bowing. And that's the part where you go, okay, should we have left? And you know what? It's too late then. You're not going anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. We definitely have learned some lessons and we're quick to go now, Go ahead, Morris.
Yeah. So I moved here from Portland, Oregon in 2021. Didn't know anything about hurricanes. It was like our biggest, should we go there? Should we not? And the first thing I did, because I didn't know a soul over here except Dan, which he was my realtor, is that I knew that I needed to make sure that we have power. So even if we leave, when you come back, that's when you care about power, right? After you've evacuated, you're coming back to your house and everything's a mess and you don't have any power. Your refrigerators are dead and, everything's going to go bad in your freezers and stuff. So that was the first thing I did is I ordered a 13,000 watt generator off Amazon. It came in like this massive crate and it was delivered by like a semi truck and all my neighbors were like, what did he order? And I opened it up and then it was like a generator and everyone's like, you don't need that. I've been here 30 years, blah, blah. And then after the first, Ian was the first one I've ever experienced. And then like, I'm throwing from my generator, I had the electrician, give me a plug-in for it to the house. And I had him dig a line all the way behind my shop I have in the back. I built like a small little overhang little shed for it. And all of a sudden, before you know it, I'm throwing extension cables to my neighbors. So they're...
You have neighbors, you have like tentacles going from your house out to all your neighbors. Keeping the refrigerators on.
Exactly. I'm keeping the refrigerators on, their little window units, and I'm powering my whole house as well. So then before you know it, they're like asking me, I got like 13 people to buy the same generator.
I did it. I got the same one Mario did.
I actually, Furman is a big lover of local relief and Jason Sutton. So Furman Generators actually sent us one.
Nice.
So I'll give a little shout out to Furman.
I can see Trip in the corner. Bring him in.
He's
my
fine.
Little dog.
He's
Bring
fine.
him in. There he is.
Can you see him?
Yeah.
My little
There you
lover
go.
dog.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's my son. Yeah, you're my son. Yeah.
He loves you.
That's an understatement. He totally does.
It's classic.
I'm so lucky. I am so lucky. But so I'm going to ask you guys a question, being realtors, because I have my own advice of which I will share. But what is your advice for anyone that wants to buy on the water?
Okay, so like my thing about like flood zone is what benefit are you getting? Are you going to be on the water? Like, are you going to be able to like have a canal? Are you going to get a direct benefit from having it? And like, okay, I get that, but then, you have to make sure your bottom floor isn't living area, like they started building, like the new code.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people that live by water, but they have no direct access. They don't have any direct like benefit of having it,
Mm-hmm.
but then they get the flood.
Right.
So that's my thing is like, are you going to have a direct benefit of actually using access to the water? If not, why would you be there? That's
your opinion.
That's my opinion.
So my thing with folks on the water, because we still have people calling us all the time, especially I get the people like, hey, I have $1 million and I want a house on the water and I want boat access for my 30-foot boat. I was like, well, first of all, in Sarasota, you're not even getting the dirt for $1 million. But but second of all is the conversation switch. We never really talked about this 3 or 4 years ago. We would talk like, yeah, there's storms in this now. And after the past couple of years, I want to, I'd love to sell a house. But I also want to be able to have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine with you 3 years from now, not on the road. I want to be at your house. So I'd like to talk. I talk about lifestyle a lot. It's like lifestyle and understanding what you're getting into, and especially meeting you with local relief. Any realtor that would sell somebody a waterfront property would just say, just make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And most of the people are boaters and they know it, but I have no problem discussing the negatives of it because I still want them to be enjoying it. And they might not know what it really is like. And, luckily Marius, our business partner, we have a ton of drone and video shots from these past storms and people that weren't even in flood zones.
Yeah.
Underwater.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this is something we'll definitely discuss. And I know we're talking about some of the things, but I just have a listing appointment actually today. Speaking about what realtors would focus on storms is they called me. We talked at 9:00 last night. They're on their way back from Orlando. They are finding a house in Orlando. And I asked them, usually we just do a little orientation, what their goals are, for the house when we sell it. And I asked him if it was partly because of the storms. And he goes, well, now that you mention it, I wasn't going to bring it up, but
bring it up.
Yeah. So he says top 3 reasons. He said, one of the top reasons we love Disney. I was like, okay, I get that. For me, it's just too crowded. Orlando's just way too much. But and they wanted something newer. Their house is about 15 years old. It's in great shape. They rode out the storm well. But that was a little bit more than we wanted to take on for panic and stress and the power. So they said, we know it storms in Florida and we know it'll storm in Orlando, but we want something new on next to Disney. But a deciding factor was the storms. We're only, 2 miles from the beach. They wrote it out well, but it is part of their decision now. And, so leading into that, the conversation goes into insurance in Florida, which I know you hear a lot about because, insurance is not going to handle roofs that are over 10 years old now.
Yeah.
Even a house is perfectly fine. You got to worry about insurance. So we have to talk about insurance. We have to talk about hurricane impact windows or shutters because before 2002, they didn't have them, so either change your windows over to impact or make sure you get, the shutters for them. Right. Because the older homes don't have them. And then, just understanding that generators might be necessary, because life happens here. Yeah. And it's still beautiful here. Yeah. I love it. I mean, I've been here 30 years. So I love going to the East Coast and going surfing, and I love getting out fishing here, and I love going to the beaches here and fishing. But the trade-off is you have to understand, what the summers bring. Yeah. And when's that season start again?
June 1st.
June 1st. Okay.
June 1st.
Okay.
November. But I've had people ask, and I've actually had people take this advice. If they say they want to live on Siesta or Longboat or whatever the case is, and even just near the water, my whole piece of advice is, if you truly want that, consider a rental or consider a very, very small property, something you can throw away. Yeah. Something if you can't throw it away, it's probably not for you. Right. Where you and I'd say, if anything, get a small place there. And then get your real home in like a Lakewood Ranch or Babcock Ranch or, and get the home that's Fort Knox, that can withstand a storm, put everything valuable in there. And then that way, if you do lose, the place that's on the water or whatever, okay, that sucks, but it's not going to be the end all be all. Everything valuable isn't in that place, and
Right.
everything that you vested isn't it. I'm like, fill it with IKEA furniture, fill it with stuff that
Sure.
you can lose, fill it with stuff that was pre-owned, whatever,
Right.
but I wouldn't put like the best of everything in that house. Like you have to be able to, to in essence lose it.
Disposable in a sense.
Yep, you do. And if that's not the case, get something inside, and every time you want to go by the water, rent it.
Yeah.
Just okay. And take a rental, because the other part too is, do you really want to live in an area where there's that much traffic?
I know.
So if that's your lifestyle and it doesn't matter, fine. But if you work and have to get, from A to B, so that's usually, my piece of advice is, I either get, I kind of say get 2 properties, if you can do it, if you
Right.
can swing it, or just rent one, but get yours inland, where it is.
It'll be pretty
where it is
expensive on the
safer.
Keys, because some of the homes are older homes that don't meet the 50% rule to rebuild on the inside. They have to
Yeah.
be torn down and rebuilt. Now you got to be 11 feet above.
Yeah.
And
and
12.
they're also one thing that we're adding to the app as well. There's a new program from FEMA and from FDEM. It's actually the first time that they're doing this, that they're launching it. It's called Elevate Florida, of which you guys should know about.
Oh, wow.
Because Elevate Florida, what they're doing, and again, go local relief. This is the stuff that I share, so they're doing something where they're literally paying, it's at least 75% or around 75% of the cost to elevate your home.
Oh, wow.
So they're not going to add on to it. This isn't like, oh, we want an addition. Oh, no.
Yeah.
It takes the current structure. If they can raise it, they raise it.
Gotcha.
So, but they're looking at, it saves them money as well.
Is this recently started, or has it just been recently
It's
passed?
recently started.
Okay.
Just started. So I would look up Elevate Florida. Again, it's with FDEM. I know it's on Florida Division of Emergency Management. That is FDEM. So I know it's on their site. So I would definitely go there. I think that's floridadisaster.org.
Okay.
And again, that's on local relief as well. But yeah, definitely. So there are programs like that where people say, hey, we can't afford to do it. Well, you know what? They know it because it's expensive. And as long as you have 20% or 25% rather of that expense, like that you can
Cover
afford
yourself.
that, exactly, that you can cover it.
Then they'll pitch in and help out.
Yep, absolutely.
That's amazing.
So it's a really cool program.
Hopefully we're not going to be talking about a lot of that, but I know Bob is going to be telling us his forecast.
Yes.
April 1st. So I'm really curious to hear that. So I hope we have because he's been pretty accurate the past couple years. He
pins
said,
and needles on that one.
So he even said in the podcast, I hope we have a mild
I'm going to give him a drink beforehand while he's doing his forecast, so it's a little calmer.
You know what I liked about him? I got to meet him through you. Is he won't hold back. He's just going to tell you how it is.
Oh, he does.
This is what it really
he's
is.
He's very good at that.
Yeah,
he's very good at that. And you're not doing us any favors if you try to
Sugarcoat
it. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah,
oh no, the water won't come in.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's only 12 feet above, but it won't come in. Your house will be fine.
Yeah. The biggest thing at the end of the day, educate yourself.
Yeah.
Please educate yourself. And, and especially too, between local relief, and especially if you are looking to buy here, and even move here, there's a lot of people that are moving from water inland. There's a lot of people that are shifting around here, after this year. So
Orlando's got the push for that. And that's kind of why I asked that gentleman, they're moving closer to the inland just to, not worry about water. They're still going to get the wind.
To live in Orlando.
I know. It's too crowded for me.
Gosh.
And I think it's real important that we keep people updated, because we're getting ready to go into June 1st.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way through November.
Yeah.
So we'll probably have a lot more conversations as, hopefully we won't have our first one in
Yes.
June 1st,
Yeah.
but as things evolve throughout the year, we'll have new things to talk about.
There will be new developments to it. Local relief, we're just starting there. It's definitely going to evolve and grow. But also as far as, homes go and as far as residents go, the big thing is, especially for the newbies, for the people that have just moved here, do yourself a favor, download Local Relief now. So you have it when you need it, instead of need it and go, what the heck was the name of that?
What was that place again?
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you prepare ahead of time.
How can we get involved? Because, as local realtors, and I think everybody should get involved, but, how can people help you, because you are a nonprofit, so
100%.
you really rely on people that care about the area and care about things. how can they get involved with you? Is it just download the app and message you, or what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I pretty much see everything. So, but yeah, definitely. You can email me, email heather@localrelief.com. You can always reach out to me that way. Definitely through the app, but also realtors. To me, I love the don't F it up, like that guy.
Yeah,
The guy, the cooking guy, he's amazing because he's an influencer. And I thought the cool thing after the fires in California, he went and he took like 1,000 burgers and he started passing them out and said, hey, as an influencer, don't F it up. Like you have a responsibility, to your people and, make sure you're making a difference and make an impact. And, I can say the same thing to realtors, where you have a responsibility to educate
we deal with homes every day,
that are coming in here, and just make sure, they may not know soup to nuts, forward, backward, upside down, as far as what to do in a disaster, because they all are different. But the one thing that you can definitely do is give them access to local relief and share local relief. And, even we have a 1-page flyer that we can, send you and give to new residents. Like, hey, new residents, here's the things that you need to look out for, and we have, our code and our information on there, where it's that information. And if you want that, again, reach out to me, heather@localrelief.com. I will send that to you, but really as a realtor, share that information with people, especially new residents that don't know how to handle disasters. And that's not just Florida. I mean, that's anywhere where you are disaster prone.
Should be in everybody's welcome package.
Yes.
And they move into their home, that should be in their welcome package.
Virtual or folder or whatever it is.
We'll put the link and the QR code in the video so they can just download it and add it right to their welcome package.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looks good. Having little chats of like, okay, we're 6 days out. What should we be doing?
Yeah. And
we're
that's
3 days out. Should we be doing?
Yeah. And then we can also, let people know, what areas are. And as far as evacuation zones, like I said, evacuation zones and flood zones, they are not the same thing.
Okay.
So even kind of going, stage by stage, piece by piece, and saying, here's what you got to do now. Here's what you have to do then. Here's what to look out for. Here's how to prepare your home, your dog, your kids, all that stuff.
I hope you're not so busy that we can't have those 3 days out, because if you're super busy at 2 days out, we're in trouble.
Yeah. We'll do this virtually. Well, if we're not doing it all, we're really in trouble, because that means we have no power and no Wi-Fi.
You could be like the weather guy out there holding on to the pole and the wind's blowing, like, hey, I'm just calling to see how's the weather out there.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Let's not.
Let's not do that. Well, thank you for coming in. I'm so excited to kind of work through the future. Hopefully, we're just going to talk about wonderful things all through the summer with no storms, but I'm sure that we'll be talking about stuff that's sitting out there in the Gulf or sitting out there in the Atlantic, or things coming up through the Caribbean.
Yeah,
thanks for coming in, and we look forward to working together here in the near future. So that was a great interview with Heather Hackett with Local Relief. I tell you, if you need to get a hold of her, check out the information down below. And until next time, you guys have a great day, wonderful week, awesome new year. Thank you from Sunbiz Studios.